Captain Thekmur stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the stars through the wide viewing screen. His ship was called the Iron Claw, and it was one of the most powerful vessels in the Ziphian Empire. The Empire had ruled this part of space for over 2,000 years. They were strong, proud, and feared by many smaller races. Today felt like any other day. Thekmur was drinking his morning brew when his second officer, Vextar, walked up to him with a data pad in his four-fingered hand. "Captain, we have detected a ship on the outer sensors," Vextar said in their clicking language. His yellow eyes looked tired from the long night shift. Thekmur barely looked up from his drink. "What kind of ship? Pirates again?" "No, sir. It appears to be a colony vessel. Large but slow-moving. The design is ... strange. We do not recognize it from our databases." This made Thekmur look up. In 2,000 years of space travel, the Zephyrians had seen almost every type of ship that existed. They had fought wars with dozens of species and conquered many worlds. If they did not know a ship design, it meant only one thing. "A new species?" Thekmur asked, setting down his cup. "It seems so, Captain. The ship is heading toward the Kepler sector. That is clearly within our territory." Thekmur stood up and walked to the main screen. His tall, thin body moved with the grace that all Zephyrians had. His gray skin showed the battle scars from many fights, and his officers respected him for his experience. "Show me this ship," he ordered. The screen changed to show a large white vessel moving slowly through space. It was bigger than most ships Thekmur had seen, but it looked peaceful. There were no visible weapons on its hull. Strange markings covered the side of the ship, symbols that meant nothing to the Zephyrians. "How many life forms are aboard?" Thekmur asked. Vextar checked his readings. "Approximately 4,000, Captain. Maybe more. The ship has heavy shielding that makes it hard to scan exactly. 4,000 beings in one ship. That was a large number for a colony vessel. Most races sent smaller groups to new worlds, testing if the planets were safe before sending more people." "Have they responded to our signals?" Thekmur asked. "We have not sent any signals yet, Captain. We wanted your orders first." Thekmur thought for a moment. The ship was clearly in Zephyrian space without permission. This was against the law that the Empire had made many years ago. Any ship that entered their territory without asking had to be stopped. Usually they would arrest the crew and take the ship, but this vessel was too big to capture easily. "What weapons do they have?" he asked. "None that we can detect, Captain. It appears to be a peaceful colony ship." This made Thekmur laugh. A species that sent colony ships with no weapons was either very brave or very stupid. In his experience, it was usually the second option. "Captain," another officer called from across the bridge. "I am reading the ship's name and origin from their hull markings. Tell me," Thekmur said. "The ship is called New Horizon. The markings say it is from a place called Earth." Earth. Thekmur had never heard that name before. He walked back to his command chair and sat down, thinking about what to do. The law was clear, but he had other things to consider. His ship was on a patrol mission, and he did not want to waste time dealing with primitive aliens. "Sir," Vextar said quietly, "what are your orders?" Thekmur looked at the peaceful ship on his screen. Inside were thousands of beings who probably had families, dreams, and hopes for their new world. They were traveling to build a new life somewhere far from their home planet. But they had made one terrible mistake. They had entered Zephyrian space. The Empire had rules for a reason. If they let one ship pass without permission, others would follow. Soon, every species in the galaxy would think they could travel through Zephyrian territory whenever they wanted. That could not happen. "They are trespassing in our space," Thekmur said finally. "They show no respect for our laws or our power. Should we contact them and order them to leave?" Vextar asked. Thekmur shook his head. They have already broken our law by entering our territory. Besides, look at them. They sent a colony ship with no weapons through space controlled by people they have never met. They are clearly too stupid to learn from warnings. The bridge became quiet. Every officer knew what the captain was thinking. "Weapons officer," Vecmer called out. "Target their engines and life support systems." "Captain," the weapons officer said, "that will kill everyone aboard." "Yes, it will," Vecmer replied without emotion. "Fire when ready." "Sir, should we not at least try to communicate with them first?" Vecmer turned to look at his officer with cold eyes. "Officer Zektar, are you questioning my orders?" "No, sir. I just thought." "You thought wrong. These aliens chose to enter our space without permission. That choice has consequences. Fire the weapons." The bridge lights dimmed as the Iron Claw charged its main guns. On the screen, the New Horizon continued moving slowly toward its destination, unaware of the danger approaching. "Weapons charged and ready, Captain," the weapons officer reported. "Fire!" Bright blue energy beams shot from the Iron Claw and struck the colony ship. The New Horizon's shields failed immediately, and the hull began to break apart. Small explosions appeared along the sides of the ship as the life support systems were destroyed. In less than 30 seconds, it was over. The New Horizon broke into pieces and began drifting in space. There were no escape pods, no distress signals, and no survivors. Vecmer watched the destruction without feeling. This was not the first time he had destroyed a ship, and it would not be the last. "Log the incident," he told Vextar. "Unknown alien vessel destroyed for violation of territorial laws. No survivors." "Yes, Captain." "Should I report this to High Command?" Vecmer thought about it for a moment, then shook his head. "No need. This was a minor incident. Some primitive species that got lost in space. Not worth bothering the admirals." He stood up and walked toward his private cabin. "Continue the patrol. Alert me if anything important happens." As the Iron Claw moved away from the debris field, none of the Zephyrians noticed the small device that had been launched from the New Horizon just before it was destroyed. The device was no bigger than a person's hand, and it was designed to be invisible to most sensors. Inside the device was a message recorder and a quantum transmitter. It had been programmed to send one simple message back to Earth if the New Horizon was ever attacked or destroyed. The message was short: New Horizon destroyed. 3,847 souls lost. Coordinates attached. Remember us. The device sent its message across the galaxy and then went silent forever. The transmission would take months to reach Earth, but when it did, everything would change. Captain Denmare never knew that by destroying one peaceful ship, he had just started a war that would end his entire civilization. 6 months had passed since Captain Vecmer destroyed the strange ship called New Horizon. He had almost forgotten about the incident completely. It was just another day's work for a Zephyrian officer. He had been promoted to admiral and now commanded a small fleet of 12 warships. Admiral Kefver sat in his command center on the military station called Deep Strike. The station was huge, bigger than most cities, and it protected the outer edge of Zephyrian space. Kefver was old, even for a Zephyrian, and his gray skin had turned almost white with age. He had fought in more wars than most officers could. "Count, Admiral," his communications officer called out. "We have an unknown contact approaching from outside our territory." Kefver looked up from his daily reports. "What kind of contact?" "A single ship, sir, small size. It appeared on our sensors about 10 minutes ago." "Only one ship?" Kefver asked. "Most species sent groups of ships when they wanted to talk to the Zephyrian Empire. A single ship usually meant pirates or smugglers." "Yes, sir, just one. But Admiral ... The officer paused, looking confused. "What is it?" "The ship is strange. Sir, our sensors can barely detect it." It keeps appearing and disappearing from our screens. This made Kethver interested. Advanced stealth technology was rare in the galaxy. Only a few species had developed ships that could hide from Zephyrian. Sensors. "Show me," he ordered. The main screen changed to show the edge of Zephyrian space. At first, Kethver saw nothing. Then, for just a moment, a small dark shape appeared on the screen before vanishing again. "There," the officer pointed. "It keeps doing that." Kethver watched the screen carefully. The ship would appear for a few seconds, then disappear completely. It was like watching a ghost move through space. "Can we get a clear scan of the vessel?" he asked. "No, sir. Every time we try to lock onto it, the ship vanishes. But we did manage to get one reading when it first appeared. Tell me." "The ship's design is unknown, Admiral. It does not match any vessel in our databases." Unknown design meant a new species. Kethver had dealt with new species before. Usually they came asking for trade agreements or begging for protection. Sometimes they came to surrender before the Empire decided to conquer them. "Size and weapons?" he asked. "Small ship, sir. Maybe big enough for 50 people at most. We cannot detect any weapons, but with that stealth technology, they might be hidden." Kethver nodded. 50 people was not a threat to a military station that held 20,000 Zephyrian soldiers. Still, he was curious about the stealth technology. "Have they sent any communications?" he asked. "Not yet, sir. They are just sitting there at the edge of our space. Send them a standard greeting message. Tell them they are approaching Zephyrian territory and must state their business." The communications officer worked at his station for a moment, then looked up. "Message sent, Admiral." They waited. Minutes passed with no response. The strange ship continued to appear and disappear on their sensors. "Sir," the officer said suddenly. "They are responding. Put it on the main speakers." The command center filled with the sound of static. Then, through the noise, came a voice. It was speaking a language that the Zephyrians had never heard before. "Can you translate it?" Kethver asked. "Working on it, sir. The computer is analyzing the language patterns." More minutes passed. The voice continued speaking in the unknown language. Finally, the computer finished its work. "Translation ready, Admiral. Play it back." The speakers crackled, and then a clear voice spoke in Zephyrian language. The voice was calm and cold. "This is Commander Sarah Chun of the Earth vessel Retribution. 6 months ago, you destroyed our colony ship New Horizon. You killed 3,847 innocent people. Men, women, and children who were traveling to build a new home." The command center became very quiet. Kethver felt something cold move through his chest. Earth. He had heard that name before, but he could not remember where. The voice continued. "We know who did it. We know which ship fired the weapons. We know the name of the captain who gave the order. Captain Thekmer of the vessel Iron Claw." Kethver's hands gripped his chair tightly. How could these aliens know such specific information? The incident had never been reported to High Command. Only the crew of the Iron Claw knew what had happened. "We are here to collect what you owe us," the voice said. "Blood for blood. Life for life." "Admiral," his tactical officer whispered. "Should we launch fighters?" Kethver held up his hand for silence. The message was not finished. "Your Captain Thekmer thought he was destroying some primitive ship that got lost in space," the voice said. "He was wrong. The New Horizon was carrying colonists to establish Earth's first settlement in this sector. These people had families waiting for them. Children who will never see their parents again. Parents who will never hold their children." The voice paused for a moment, then continued with the same cold tone. "You have shown us who you are. You kill innocent people without warning, without mercy, without even bothering to communicate first. You treat life as worthless. Now you will learn that actions have consequences. Sir," the communications officer said quietly. Should I respond? Kethver was thinking hard. One small ship against his entire fleet was not a threat. But the way these humans had found them, the information they had, and their stealth technology made him worry. Before he could answer, the voice spoke again. We are not here to negotiate. We are not here to demand payment or territory. We are here for justice. Simple justice. Admiral, the tactical officer said urgently, I recommend we destroy that ship immediately. Kethver was about to agree when the human voice spoke one last time. Oh, and Admiral Kethver, we know you are listening. We know your name, your rank, and your history. We know about the war crimes you committed on Altair 7. We know about the civilians you ordered killed on Rigel Prime. We know everything about you and your empire. Kethver's blood turned to ice. The incidents on Altair 7 and Rigel Prime were classified military secrets. Even most Zephyrian officers did not know about them. How could these humans possibly know? You have 48 hours to surrender. Captain Thekmer, to us for trial, the voice said. If you refuse, we will come and take him ourselves. And anyone who gets in our way will be considered an enemy of Earth. The transmission ended. The command center was completely silent. Sir, the communications officer said nervously, they are moving away from our border. Where are they going? Unknown, sir. They have vanished completely from our sensors. Kethver stared at the empty screen. In his long military career, he had never been threatened by a single ship. The humans had to be bluffing. 50 people could not threaten the Zephyrian Empire, but the fact that they knew classified information worried him greatly. How long had they been watching? How much did they really know? Get me Captain Thekmer immediately, he ordered. Sir, should I alert High Command about this threat? Kethver thought about it. If he reported that a single alien ship had threatened the Empire, his superiors would think he was getting old and weak. They might remove him from command. Not yet, he said. Let me talk to Thekmer first. This is probably just some primitive species making empty threats. But deep inside, Kethver knew this was different. The humans had spoken with the voice of people who had already decided to go to war. They were not angry or emotional. They were simply stating facts, and that scared him more than any threat he had ever heard. The human ship was gone, but Kethver knew they would be back. The question was not if they would return, but when, and what they would bring with them when they did. The 48 hours passed without any sign of the human ship. Admiral Kethver had spoken with Captain Thekmer, who laughed at the human threat. Thekmer refused to surrender himself to aliens he had never heard of before. Let them come, Thekmer had said over the communication link. I have destroyed bigger threats than one small ship. 3 days after the human ultimatum expired, the first attack happened. Commander Zekino was leading a patrol of 6 Zephyrian warships near the Proxima mining station. The station produced rare metals that the Empire needed for building new ships. It was protected by heavy shields and weapons platforms. Commander, his sensor officer called out, the mining station has stopped responding to our signals. Zekino looked up from his reports. The mining station always maintained contact with patrol ships. It was required by military law. When did they last respond? He asked. About 20 minutes ago, sir. I have been trying to reach them since then. Take us closer to the station, Zekino ordered. His ship, the Star Piercer, moved toward the mining facility. As they got closer, Zekino could see that something was wrong. The station's lights were flickering, and several of the defense platforms were dark. Sir, the sensor officer said with worry in his voice, I am reading no life signs from the station. What do you mean no life signs? There are 5,000 workers on that station. Sir, the station appears to be completely empty. This was impossible. The mining station could not be evacuated in 20 minutes. It would take hours. to move 5,000 people to safety. Take us into docking range, Jikanal ordered. We are going aboard to investigate. The star piercer connected to the station's main docking port. Zikanal led a team of 30 soldiers inside. The station's corridors were dark and quiet. Emergency. Lights cast red shadows on the walls. They found the first bodies in the main control room. The station workers were lying at their positions, but there were no signs of battle. No burn marks from energy weapons, no blood, no damage to the equipment. "Sir," one of his soldiers said, checking the bodies, "they appear to have died from some kind of gas." Jackanoll examined the nearest body. The worker's face was peaceful, as if he had simply fallen asleep at his job. "Check the air filters," he ordered. His soldiers found that the station's air system had been filled with a sleeping gas. Everyone on the station had breathed it and died quietly within minutes. "Commander," his communications officer called through. "The radio, you need to see this." Zikanal followed the voice to the station's main computer room. On the largest screen, a message was displayed in perfect Zephyrian text. "Admiral Kethver ignored our deadline. This mining station produced materials. HFY weapons used to kill innocent people. The workers here supported a military that commits murder. Consider this a warning. Surrender Thekmer, or more stations will go dark. Signed, Commander Chun, Earthfleet." Zikanal stared at the message. How had the humans gotten aboard the station? Without anyone noticing? How had they killed 5,000 people without firing a single shot? "Sir," another soldier called from across the room, "the station's defense systems are still active, but they have been reprogrammed." "What do you mean reprogrammed?" "The weapons platforms are now targeting any Zephyrian ship that approaches. We are only safe because we docked before the change was made." Zikanal felt fear creeping into his mind. The humans had not only killed everyone on the station, they had turned it into a trap for other Zephyrian ships. "Get everyone back to the ship immediately," he ordered. "We are leaving now." The star piercer undocked from the station and moved to a safe distance. As soon as they were clear, the station's weapons turned and pointed at them. The message was clear. Any other Zephyrian ship that tried to approach would be destroyed. Zikanal sent an urgent report to Admiral Kethver, but by the time the message reached Deep Strike, 3 more facilities had gone dark. The Crystal Bay Research Station stopped responding 2 hours after Proxima. The Gamma Outpost Trading Center went silent 4 hours later. By the end of the day, 7 Zephyrian installations had been attacked. Each attack was the same. No visible enemy ships, no battle, no survivors. The humans would appear like ghosts, kill everyone quietly, and reprogram the defenses to attack Zephyrian vessels. Admiral Kethver stood in his command center, looking at the tactical display. Red marks showed where Zephyrian facilities had been lost. The pattern made no sense. The humans were attacking targets across hundreds of light years of space. How could one ship move so quickly? "Admiral," his intelligence officer said, "I have completed analysis of the attacks. Tell me what you found." "Sir, the timing suggests that the humans are not using one ship. They must have multiple vessels working together." "How many ships do you estimate?" "At least 20, sir, maybe more. And they all have the same stealth technology we saw on the first ship. 20 invisible ships." Kethver felt his confidence slipping away. The Zephyrian Empire had fought many wars, but never against an enemy they could not see. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted, "we are receiving reports from Sector 7. The trade route between Altair and Vega has been completely shut down." "Shut down how?" "Unknown, sir. Merchant ships that enter the area simply disappear. No distress signals, no wreckage, they just vanish." Kethver walked to the main viewing screen and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were hunting his people. They moved like shadows and struck without warning. "Admiral," another officer called out. "Captain Vekmer is requesting permission to hunt the human ships." "Absolutely not," Kethver replied quickly. "Vekmer will stay at the fortress base where he is protected." "Sir, he says he is not afraid of primitive aliens." "Vekmer is an idiot," Kethver said angrily. "These humans are not primitive. They are something far worse." The attacks continued for 2 weeks. Every day brought new reports of lost facilities and missing ships. The humans seemed to know exactly which targets would hurt the Empire most. They attacked supply depots, communication stations, and fuel refineries. They never touched civilian colonies or non-military targets. The pattern was clear. The humans were not just killing Zephyrians for revenge. They were systematically destroying the Empire's ability to wage war. "Sir," his strategic planning officer said during a late-night briefing, "if the attacks continue at this rate, we will lose operational capability within 3 months." "What do you mean?" Kethver asked. "The humans are targeting our military infrastructure with surgical precision. They know exactly which facilities are most important for maintaining our fleet. Without these bases, our ships cannot be repaired, refueled, or resupplied." Kethver looked at the damage reports spread across his desk. In 2 weeks, the humans had destroyed more military assets than the Empire had lost in the last 50 years of warfare. "How do they know which targets to hit?" he asked. "That is the most disturbing part, sir. The humans appear to have detailed intelligence about our entire military structure. They know things that even some of our own officers do not know." The intelligence officer pulled up a star chart on the main screen. "Look at this pattern, Admiral. Every target they have chosen serves a specific purpose in weakening our defensive capabilities. This level of planning would take years to develop." Kethver stared at the chart. A terrible thought was forming in his mind. "How long do you think they have been watching us?" he asked quietly. "Based on the accuracy of their intelligence?" "Probably decades, sir, maybe longer." The command center became silent. The idea that aliens had been secretly studying the Zephyrian Empire for decades was terrifying. It meant that while the Zephyrians thought they were the masters of their territory, the humans had been learning their weaknesses. "Sir," the communications officer said softly, "we are receiving another message from the humans. Put it through." "Commander." Chun's calm voice filled the room. "Admiral Kethver, you have lost 23 military installations and 47 ships. This is only the beginning. Surrender Vekmer now, or watch your empire crumble one piece at a time. You have 24 hours to decide." The message ended, leaving the Zephyrians in silence. Kethver knew that he faced a choice. He could surrender one officer to save his civilization, or he could continue fighting an enemy that seemed to know his every move. Looking at the red marks spreading across his tactical display, Kethver realized that the humans had already won the first phase of their war. They had proven that the mighty Zephyrian Empire could be hurt badly, and this was still just the beginning. Admiral Kethver sat in his private office, staring at files spread across his desk. For 3 days, he had been reading intelligence reports about other species in the galaxy. What he found made his blood run cold. His chief intelligence officer, Colonel Mextar, stood beside the desk with more files in his arms. "Tell me about the Calaxians," Kethver said, pointing to one of the reports. "The Calaxians were a warrior race that controlled 15 star systems," Mextar replied. "They were known for their aggressive expansion and powerful military." "You said were. What happened to them?" Mextar's voice became quiet. "They disappeared, sir, about 8 years ago. Their entire civilization just stopped existing." "Disappeared how? Were they conquered?" "No, sir. There was no war, no battle, no invasion. One day they were responding to communications from other species. The next day, their entire territory was empty." Kethver felt his stomach twist. Empty how? Every planet, every space station, every ship. All abandoned, no bodies, no signs of struggle. The Galaxians simply vanished. What did the galactic community think happened? Most species assumed they had evacuated to unknown space. But Sir Mexstar paused. What? I found records showing that the Galaxians had destroyed a human exploration ship called Deep Explorer about 9 years ago. The ship was carrying scientific researchers. Kethver's hands began to shake. How many humans died? The records show 237 people, sir. The Admiral stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the stars. Tell me about the Vorthan Republic. Mexstar opened another file. The Vorthans controlled 12 systems in the Outer Rim. They were traders and miners, mostly peaceful. They suffered what they called a systems collapse 5 years ago. Their government fell apart, their economy crashed, and their colonies were abandoned. The survivors scattered across the galaxy as refugees. Let me guess, Kethver said without turning around. They had killed humans. Yes, sir. A Vorthan patrol destroyed a human cargo ship called Peaceful Dawn. The ship was carrying aid supplies to colonies affected by a plague. 612 humans died. Kethver closed his eyes. The pattern was becoming clear. Tell me about the others, he said. For the next hour, Mexstar read from file after file. The Xerian Empire collapsed after a mysterious plague struck their homeworld. The Talaxian Confederacy, destroyed by unknown raiders who used advanced stealth technology. The Mordian clans, whose entire fleet vanished during a routine training exercise. Every single civilization had one thing in common. They had killed humans. Sir, Mexstar said when he finished reading, I also found something else. What? Records of species that encountered humans, but did not attack them. The Benthans, the Altarians, the Centauri Alliance. All of these races are still thriving and have good relationships with their neighbors. And the ones that attacked humans? Gone, sir. All of them. Kethver returned to his desk and sat down heavily. How long have the humans been doing this? Based on these records, at least 20 years, sir, maybe longer. 20 years, Kethver repeated. They have been systematically destroying any species that kills their people for 20 years. It appears so, sir. And no one in the galactic community has noticed the pattern. Most species assumed these were separate incidents, sir. Civil wars, natural disasters, economic collapse. No one suspected that one species was causing all of these problems. Kethver looked at the files again. How do they do it? How do the humans destroy entire civilizations without anyone knowing? Mexstar opened a different file. I have been studying the attack patterns on our own facility, sir. I believe I understand their methods. Explain. The humans do not fight like we do, sir. They do not invade planets or destroy cities. Instead, they study their targets for years, learning everything about how their society works. What do you mean? Think about it, sir. Every attack on our facilities has targeted something specific. Supply depots, communication networks, fuel refineries. They are not trying to kill as many Zephyrians as possible. They are trying to make our civilization stop working. Kethver nodded slowly, like breaking the parts of a machine. Exactly. Sir, and once a civilization cannot maintain itself, it collapses from the inside. The Galaxians probably fled their territory when they could no longer defend it. The Vorthans lost their economy when their trade routes were cut. But how do the humans know so much about their targets? That is the most frightening part, sir. Mexstar pulled out another file. I found evidence that humans have been secretly observing dozens of species for decades. They have hidden monitoring stations, infiltration agents, and data collection networks throughout this part of the galaxy. Infiltration agents? Yes, sir. Beings that look like other species but are actually working for the humans. Or members of other species who have been recruited to spy for Earth. Kethver felt sick. You mean there could be human agents among our own people? It is possible, sir. How else would they know about classified operations like Altair 7? And Rigel Prime? The Admiral stood up and began pacing around his office. So the humans have been watching the galaxy for decades. When a species kills their people, they spend years learning everything about that civilization. Then they attack. Not with armies, but with surgical strikes designed to make the society collapse. That is my assessment, sir. And no one fights back because no one realizes they are under attack until it is too late. Correct, sir. By the time a civilization understands what is happening, they have already lost the ability to defend themselves. Kethver stopped pacing and looked at his intelligence officer. How long do we have? Sir? How long before the Zephyrian Empire collapses completely? Nextar looked at his reports. If the attacks continue at the current rate, 6 weeks, sir, maybe 8. 6 weeks to lose an empire that took 2,000 years to build. Yes, sir. Kethver sat down and put his head in his hands. What are our options? We could surrender Captain the Khmer to the humans. And you think that would satisfy them? Nextar shook his head. Honestly, sir? No. Based on what happened to other species, I believe the humans have already decided to destroy our civilization completely. Surrendering the Khmer might slow them down, but it will not stop them. What about negotiation? Offering them payment or territory? The humans have never accepted negotiations from any species they have targeted, sir. They appear to believe that killing their people is an unforgivable crime. So we fight. Sir, how do you fight an enemy you cannot see? An enemy that knows everything about you but reveals nothing about themselves? An enemy that has been planning this war for years while you did not even know they existed? Kethver had no answer. In his long military career, he had never faced a problem with no solution. Sir, Nextar said quietly, there's one more thing. What? I found records suggesting that Earth has detailed war plans for every major species in this part of the galaxy. Not just species that have attacked them, but everyone. What do you mean? I mean that somewhere on Earth, there are probably files explaining exactly how to destroy the Benthans, the Altarians, the Centauri Alliance, and dozens of other civilizations. The humans have prepared for war with everyone, just in case. Kethver stared at his intelligence officer. You are telling me that Earth has the capability to end every civilization in this sector of space? That is what the evidence suggests, sir. And the only thing stopping them is that most species have been smart enough not to kill humans. Yes, sir. Kethver walked back to his window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were continuing their silent war against his people. And somewhere beyond that was a planet called Earth, where people sat in rooms planning the destruction of entire civilizations. The Zephyrian Empire had thought they were the most powerful force in the galaxy. They had been wrong. The humans were not just more powerful. They were more patient, more careful, and more thorough than any species Kethver had ever encountered. Sir, Nextar said, what are your orders? Kethver continued staring at the stars. Prepare evacuation plans for our core worlds, and pray that the humans are merciful enough to let some of us survive. Captain the Khmer stood on the bridge of his ship, watching his homeworld burn below. The planet Zephyr Prime had been the heart of the Empire for over 2,000 years. Now it was dying. 2 months had passed since the humans began their war. The Zephyrian military was gone. Their supply lines were cut. Their colonies had been abandoned. Admiral Kethver had tried to evacuate the core worlds, but there was nowhere safe to run. Captain, his weapons officer said quietly, there is a ship approaching. The Khmer looked at his tactical display. A single vessel was moving toward them from the edge of the system. It was small and dark, like all the human ships they had encountered. Just one ship? Vecmer asked. Yes, sir. It appears to be the same type that started this war. Vecmer laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. One ship. They send one ship to finish what they started. His communications officer looked up from her station. Sir, they are sending a message. Let me hear it. The bridge speakers crackled, and then a familiar voice filled the room. It was Commander Chun, the human who had delivered the first ultimatum. Captain Vecmer, this is Commander Sarah Chun of the Earth vessel Retribution. You destroyed our colony ship New Horizon. You killed 3,847 innocent people. Now your civilization is ended. We require your surrender for trial and judgment. Vecmer stared at the small ship on his screen. Around his own vessel, the wreckage of the Zephyrian home fleet drifted in space. Hundreds of ships had tried to defend their homeworld. All had been destroyed by invisible enemies that struck. Without warning, open a channel, Vecmer ordered. Channel open, sir. This is Captain Vecmer. You want me to surrender? Come and take me, human. There was a long pause. Then Chun's voice returned, calm as always. Captain, look around you. Your empire is gone. Your fleets are destroyed. Your colonies are empty. Your people are scattered across the galaxy as refugees. All of this happened because you chose to murder innocent colonists. Vecmer looked at his tactical display. Chun was right. The mighty Zephyrian Empire existed only in history now. We were protecting our territory, Vecmer said. You were committing murder, Chun replied. The New Horizon was a peaceful colony. Ship, they had no weapons. They posed no threat to anyone. You killed them because you could, not because you had to. They were trespassing in our space. Captain, do you know what your people did wrong? Vecmer was confused by the question. What do you mean? Your mistake was thinking that killing humans has no consequences. Every other species in the galaxy has learned that lesson. You did not. Other species? The Calaxians thought they could destroy our exploration ship without consequences. The Vorthans thought they could murder our aid workers without consequences. The Zerians thought they could attack our research station without consequences. They were all wrong. Vecmer felt cold fear in his chest. How many civilizations have you destroyed? 17, Chun replied without emotion. 17 species that chose to kill innocent humans. All of them are gone now. And species that did not attack you? The Benthans have traded with us for 20 years. The Altarians are our allies. The Centauri Alliance works with us on scientific projects. We have no conflict with species that do not murder our people. Vecmer understood now. The humans did not want to conquer the galaxy. They simply wanted to live in peace. But if anyone killed their people, they would respond with total destruction. Captain, Chun continued, your people are not evil. Most Zephyrians had nothing to do with the attack on New Horizon. That is why we have allowed them to evacuate safely. We have provided refugee ships and safe passage to neutral systems. Then why destroy our civilization? Because your military leadership believes that human life is worthless. Because your government allows officers like you to commit murder without consequences. Because your empire was built on the idea that might makes right. Chun paused, then continued in the same calm voice. We cannot allow civilizations like yours to exist, not when they pose a threat to innocent people throughout the galaxy. Vecmer looked around his bridge. His crew was listening to every word. They all knew that their captain's decision had doomed their entire species. What happens to me if I surrender? Vecmer asked. You will be tried for the murder of 3,847 people. If found guilty, you will be executed. And if I refuse to surrender, then we will take you by force. The result will be the same. Vecmer knew he had no choice. His ship was surrounded by wreckage. His weapons were nearly empty. His shields were failing. The human ship looked small, but he had seen what human technology could do. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "maybe we should fight. Die with honor instead of surrendering to aliens." Vecmer looked at his young officer. "Honor? What honor? Is there in dying for a mistake? I killed innocent people because I was arrogant and stupid. Now my entire species pays the price." He turned to his communications officer. "Open the channel again." "Yes, sir." "Commander Chun, I will surrender to you, but I want to ask you something first." "What is your question, Captain? How long have you been planning this war?" "We began preparing for conflict with your species 37 years ago, when our scouts first encountered Zephyrian territory." 37 years, Vecmer felt sick. The humans had been watching and planning for longer than he had been alive. "You have been studying us for 37 years? "We study every species we encounter, Captain. We learn their strengths, their weaknesses, their culture, their military capabilities. Most species never give us reason to use this information. But you were ready if we attacked you. We are ready if anyone attacks us, Captain. Earth learned long ago that peace requires preparation for war." Vecmer understood now. Humanity was not just another species trying to survive in a dangerous galaxy. They were something far more sophisticated. They were a civilization that had turned survival into a science. "I am ready to surrender," Vecmer said finally. "Understood, Captain. Prepare to be boarded." The human ship moved closer to the Khmars. Vessel, a small shuttle detached from its hull and approached the Zephyrian ship's docking bay. "Captain," his weapons officer said, "we could still fight." Vecmer shook his head. "No, this war is over. It was over before it began." He walked toward the docking bay, followed by a squad of human soldiers in advanced armor. Commander Chun was with them, a small woman with gray hair and cold eyes. "Captain Vecmer," she said when she saw him. "Commander Chun, you are smaller than I expected. Size does not matter when you have the right tools and the right plan." Chun gestured for him to walk ahead of her toward the shuttle. As they moved through the corridors of his ship, Vecmer saw his crew watching with frightened eyes. "What will happen to my crew?" he asked. "They will be released. They did not give the order to fire on New Horizon. And my people? The Zephyrian refugees? They will be allowed to settle on neutral worlds. Earth has no conflict with Zephyrian civilians." They reached the shuttle. Before stepping inside, Vecmer turned to look back at his ship one last time. "Commander, may I ask you something?" "What? Do you feel satisfaction?" "Destroying my entire civilization for the deaths of 4,000 humans?" Chun looked at him with those cold eyes. "Captain, every person aboard New Horizon had a name, a family, and dreams for the future. You ended all of that in 30 seconds because you thought their lives did not matter." She paused, then continued, "Satisfaction? No, I feel justice. And I feel certainty that no other species will make the same mistake you did." As the shuttle left the dying Zephyrian fleet behind, Chun activated her communication system. "This is Commander Chun to all vessels in the local sector. The Zephyrian Empire no longer exists. Captain Vecmer has been captured and will face trial for crimes against humanity. Any species that harms human citizens will face the same consequences. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The message was broadcast across the galaxy. On hundreds of worlds, alien leaders listened and understood. Humanity was not to be tested. On Earth, in a quiet office, a clerk made a note in an official record. Next to the entry for Zephyrian Empire, she wrote 2 words, "Case closed." Then she opened a new file for the next species that Earth scouts had discovered. The work of protecting humanity never ended.